Welcome back to Tales Arcane, where we talk about D&D, TTRPGs, and fantasy storytelling. In this video, I'm going to be offering some tips on how to keep your players excited and engaged with a long campaign. DMs often worry about their players losing interest and the campaign fizzling out if it drags on too long, but hopefully these 5 tips are going to be able to keep your players excited for each new session and keep them coming back for more. In this video, I'm going to look less at how to make individual sessions enjoyable and more at things you can do across the long-term campaign to keep your players invested for the long haul. But first, this video is sponsored by Gelatinous Cubicles and their new Kickstarter, Tales from the Firelit Gathering. Gelatinous Cubicles are a group of passionate D&D homebrewers who want to fund a hardcover book full of resources for better character creation. Tales from the Firelit Gathering will include new weapons and armor, new feats, spells, subclasses, all the character goodness that you can bring to your table to give your players a better experience. When in discussion with Gelatinous Cubicles about this promo, one thing that really came across in the conversation was the fact that they wanted to create really fun, unique homebrew content that was also well balanced and wasn't game breaking. A lot of homebrew content on the internet can be a lot of fun, but it ends up breaking the game and making the DM's head hurt. By contrast, Tales from the Firelit Gathering is going to give your players a better experience without making your life harder as the person running the game. The content in this book is all 5e compatible, and from what I've seen so far, the artwork looks really cool. There's a link to the Kickstarter down below this video, so check them out if you're interested and if you want to back the project. Now, here are my 5 tips for long-term player engagement. Tip number 1 is very simple but very important. Don't get caught up in mysteries and end up leaving your players in the dark. A lot of the time DMs get kind of enchanted by their own mystery boxes and they want to keep some information back so they can reveal things to the players later and stun them with plot twists. That's all great, but it's really important that players know what they're doing and why they're doing it during the session-to-session experience of the game. I would always strongly advise that at any time in the game, you should be able to turn to your players and say, what is it you're trying to do right now? And they should be able to just look at you and tell you, oh, we're trying to go to this place because we're looking for this person, and we think if we don't find him, they're going to do this thing. So suddenly it's like, there's a clear goal, there's a consequence if we don't find them, and there's also hopefully a clear understanding of the reward. Of course you want to hold some things back, you want to have some deep lore that's going to be revealed later on, but please don't go overboard with this, because I have done it. I have kept things back for far too long and gradually watched my players lose interest in the campaign because they're sitting there going, well, why are we doing this? Maybe we're trying to find some item, but we don't know what the item does or what happens if we don't find it. Don't keep your players in the dark. Give them enough information to always have context and meaning behind what they're doing in each individual session. Players are going to level up mechanically over time. They'll get new abilities and they'll get score improvements, that's all good. But you also want to give them the chance to feel that they're leveling up their status within the world. At the start of a campaign, the players are probably going to be a band of roving adventurers with no real place in the world and not a great deal of money or reputation. If 20 or 30 sessions later, they've got a bunch of extra spell slots and hit points, but they're still just a roaming band of adventurers without a reputation or a real place in the world, they're going to feel that they've not really had an impact, they've not really progressed. Some dungeon masters worry about permanently changing the status of the party. They worry that they'll lose that classic wandering adventurer feel, and they will over time. But that's not a bad thing. If the players are saving towns, slaying dragons, getting to know different powerful figures in the realm, they should feel that their status in the world is changing and progressing. And there's a lot of ways that you can do this. I try to make sure that at least every 10 sessions, the players get some big chance to advance their status in the world. Maybe they get offered membership of a prestigious guild. Maybe they get a new base of operations, a small building or castle even, where they can set up a permanent headquarters. Maybe they get a new kind of travel mechanism in the world, a better ship, better mounts, whatever it is. Or maybe they get new connections. They earn the favour of wealthy patrons or even a king who takes them on as champions. The important thing is that when the players look back 20, 30, 40 sessions down the line, they can say, look where we started, look where we are now. And they're going to be all the more excited about continuing because they have this sense that yes, they've still got a long way to go perhaps, but they are going somewhere. They're not the same people they were when they started. They have money, they have power, they have influence. And I really think that's an important thing to bear in mind. Like I say, every 10 sessions or so, I love to have the players feel that they have stepped up in the world. They've moved ahead in their adventuring careers. Reputation and status progression feel like similar concepts, but reputation is such an important motivator for players in long campaigns that I really wanted to make it its own section. One thing about reputation is that it scales to some extent indefinitely across the course of the campaign. When the players start out, nobody knows who they are. They're not going to get respect off anyone. Bandits are going to stop them on the roads. They're nobody. But over time, that's going to change. Whenever a player does something like a great deed, the players slay a monster or free a town from an oppressive lord, I make sure to take note of that as a kind of key reputational event. And after the session, I'll look at our world map and I'll say, okay, that word is going to travel out and it will hit this area of the kingdom in about 5 days, this area in about a week, and so on. And then maybe 5 sessions later, the players arrive in a new area and their reputation precedes them. It might only be a small thing, but someone in the town recognises them and says, hey, you're those folks who drove the bandits out of that town a few valleys down the road. And even just in that one NPC's eyes, their reputation has grown and the players go, oh wow, we did that. You know, we're making a little bit of a name for ourselves. The first time your players walk into a tavern and hear a minstrel singing or telling tales about their great deeds, they are going to lose their minds. Their faces will light up and they'll realise that they could almost become celebrities in this world. Their reputation can go out to the point where when they arrive in a new town, quest givers are lining up to ask for their help. Locals are coming by, thanking them for everything they've done. Maybe the innkeeper is giving them like a discounted room because he knows people will stay at the inn if the heroes are staying at the inn. These little things make players feel like they're moving ahead in the world, and they'll want to build that reputation. Once they get a taste for it, it's a great motivator long term. This is a very simple one, but it's really important these days now that a lot of DMs are using milestone progression. Level your players up regularly. I hear these horror stories about DMs who almost never level their players up, or they make them wait months and months because they say, wow, we've not had a suitable milestone yet. Now, firstly, as a DM, you can put a milestone in their path. You can put a big encounter in their path that will allow them to level up. But secondly, leveling up is great because it keeps players excited about the long-term campaign and it keeps them feeling fresh with their character. I've had some great times where a player has maybe not really been feeling their character, and then they level up. A couple of great new spells come online and they go, oh my god, I'm excited about this character again. That's really important. If you find that your players are stuck at the same level for a while, just put something in front of them that's going to justify a level up if you want a kind of milestone situation. Personally, over a kind of a long-term campaign, I'm going to let my players level up maybe every 5 or 6 sessions. I mean, it depends. I mean, at the early days, I'm going to be leveling up a little bit faster than that. By the time they're at level 12, 13, 14, I'm going to be putting a bit more distance between the level ups. But from that sort of level 4 to level 10 stage, I'm going to give them a level up pretty much every 5 sessions. The final point is let your players lead the way. Let your players show you what's going to keep them interested in the long term. Now, as DMs, we have to make some plans. We have to write a bit of a campaign and a bit of an idea of where the players are going to go. That's fine. But if we stick to those rigidly and we don't let the players evolve the story in their own way, the players are going to start tuning out and just becoming less invested and engaged over time. I once wrote a whole campaign built around a concept that at some point there was going to be a demon invasion. But along the way I realised that the players didn't care. They didn't enjoy the kind of demonic scenes I had set out. They weren't following up on any of the little demon seeds that I was laying in the campaign. And what they were getting really interested in was the organised crime in a particular city. They wanted to get involved in the various gangs. They wanted to get involved in a gang warfare and take down a rival organisation. So I was like, okay, that's what we're going to focus on. Let's put the demon invasion on the back burner. Let's put that on hold. I don't care really what we're doing as long as my players are having fun and rolling dice and punching the air and excited for the next session. So if what they're communicating to me through what they show interest in is that they want to go into the organised crime underworld, that's what we're doing. I don't mind. It's important to not get too attached to your plans for the future, and be open to the idea that your players are going to, over time, move the story in directions you never anticipated. And if you let them do that, what's going to happen is that they're always going to be playing a campaign where the things that they're excited about are at the centre of the campaign. Those are the 5 tips that personally I find really useful in my own games. Whenever I notice that my players maybe aren't as excited about the next session as I'd like them to be, if I notice that they don't seem to be talking much about the campaign in between sessions, I start trying to remember these tips, implement them at my table, and almost always things improve because the players start getting drawn back into the world, back into the sense of progression, and start getting excited about the potential of where their characters could go. Before we finish the video, I just want to say a massive thank you to Gelatinous Cubicles, the second sponsor I've ever had on this channel, which is very exciting. I'm really excited to see this hardcover book become a reality. I will of course be backing it because I want it, and I'm getting kind of addicted to hardcover books now that aren't from Wizards of the Coast. The OGL situation has kind of opened up this itch inside me to get cool stuff from third-party content creators. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Huge thank you to my patrons who, as always, sponsor my content every video and really give me the chance to do the kind of content I want to do, especially with the long-form content. Stick with the channel, we've got a lot more to come.